What's up, you degenerates? I hope our intro video did not blow out your eardrums like they do mine every time. What's up? What's up? What's up? How you guys doing? It feels so good to be back. And I am your host, Mason Cameron, at PFF_Mace on the Twitter. So you can come and yell at me there. Football season's getting underway, so you guys definitely want to come and check out everything IN has to offer. But today we are deep into the MLB, and with me is IN's MLB analyst, Brenden Fleming. B, how are you doing today? We got a lot of stuff to talk about. There's been quite a few things go down recently, some jumbling of the records, some awards to be awarded. So how are you feeling? How are you doing? How are you living?
It's good. It's been fun following the league this year. It's been chaotic in just about every single division. The standing has shifted a lot since we've last spoke, so it'll be interesting to break everything down.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. There's a lot of stuff we got going on, so we'll actually just crack straight into it. And unfortunately, today Mike is punching the clock. He's got some work he's got to do, so he can't be joining us. But that's okay. Me and B are just gonna chug on along, and we are gonna break down everything you guys need to know as we head into August, September, and into the playoff push. So, for starters, my cat just took a 40-yard dash in the back of my room. For starters, we have some big news, some big bats in the lineup. Luis Arraez, 365 halfway through August. That's incredible. That's insane.
It's insane. And, it's probably not going to get the 400 season like he looked like he was going to, but he's still been the gold standard for the Marlins, keeping them in this playoff race. Been the heartbeat of this offense. And, 365 is still a very high, extremely high batting average to have this late in the season. It's a very impressive season from him.
And the funny thing is I hate to take anything away from Ted Williams, because Ted was obviously so good and that 400 season. But let's be honest, man, he had some plumbers throwing from the mound. All right. And now the game is so much more evolved, so much more talent. I think that it's almost just as impressive to see how Arraez has done this versus, say, how somebody from the old days might have done it, like when Ted hit 400. But at 365 through August is absolutely nuts. I can't even comprehend. And it's funny because anybody that's in the Discord, obviously join our Discord, importantnonsense.com/supporters. That's how you get into our Discord. You can ask us all these questions, but we talk about it all the time. It's some weeks Arraez he hit 500 in a day, or in a 3-game span, or in a series. And this number can just skyrocket very quickly for him. Now, it's not so much so because, we're getting into the later days of the season, and the sample size is a lot bigger now. It's harder to make those swings in the batting average, but this is a guy that has that ability to hit for, 1,000 in a day. So, I think we could see it and eventually get even higher. But I can't wait to see him keep playing, because it's been a great watch for sure.
Yeah, and absolutely. And so with some of the wicked sliders and curveballs and changeups we're seeing in the league today, Ted Williams is not hitting 400.
No shot.
No shot. Today.
Literally, two-seamers break like 12 inches now. You see a two-seamer that'll break like that, and you're just like, how does anybody have any chance to hit a 94-mile-per-hour two-seamer that's just cutting across the entirety of the plate? So
yeah, if he's showing up here, he's calling witchcraft these days. Exactly. He was getting meatballs. Like every pitch was a challenge pitch, pretty much. And so, it's just impressive to see 365 from Arraez. I don't know if we'll see 400 anytime soon from anyone with how people are pitching these days, but 365 is probably that a little bit higher, maybe 375. Maybe that's that new number to reach for.
Yeah, I think that like all sports in general, the eras that guys play in do matter. The Jordan era is different from the LeBron era. The Tom Brady era is different from the Jim Brown era. It's just like that. And the same thing goes with baseball, where, we talk about it with the home run record. Now, that's a little bit different because it's kind of connected to potential cheating or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think just the fact of the matter that the game is so different from decade to decade really makes it hard to see exactly how impressive this season's been from Arise, for sure. Absolutely. And some other players that are just doing absolutely crazy, hitting rockets out of the park. Matt Olson, 42 home runs, just overtook Shohei's 40 home runs. Now, Matt, that's very impressive of you to hit 42 home runs. I'm stoked for you. It's still a little less impressive than Shohei Ohtani hitting 40. I will say that. But shout out to Matt. What do you make of what Olson's done and even what Ohtani's done in this season so far, Flem?
Well, Matt Olson's on a power surge. He just hit 2 home runs yesterday to take the lead in that regard. And that's just adding to a Braves team that's just almost perfect. They're almost a perfect team from top to bottom. And, you know, he's hitting 270, which is still a good average for a power hitter of his regard. 100. He's broken the 100 RBI markers already. It's just a good bat, you know. Just to think that the Oakland A's had him and Sean Murphy and a bunch of other talent, like as of 3-4 years ago, and they let it all crumble to this point is crazy. But, you know, Olson, very good bat. It'll be interesting to see if he keeps pace and holds the MLB lead. I am in agreement with you, though, that Ohtani is a little more impressive just because of the fact that he's a starting pitcher as well. You know, we're going to touch on the MVP talk in a little bit, but you know, watching Ohtani on a day-to-day basis it's just like he's making news every day with what he's doing. And, you know, it's fun to see, especially on the Angels team that's kind of struggling right now. He's really trying to carry that load. And
imagine if Ted Williams came up to the freaking plate and he saw Shohei Ohtani across from him, throwing 102, throwing the curveball that drops like that out of the hat, and then just slamming a home run off of his pitch. I would be distraught.
Yeah, it's again witchcraft, like we were saying. Shohei is batting 305 as well with the great batting average. The OPS is 1 point above 1. Who hits above 1 OPS these days? It's very rare to find, especially from a starting pitcher. We're going to touch on the MVP talk in a little bit, but Shohei's just out of this world. You hear it everywhere. He makes news every day. It's insane.
It is insane. And I actually, while we talk about it, I do have the futures up here, or I'm pulling them up here so that we can get some Cy Young numbers, some MVP numbers, and we're gonna break down into that here soon. But you know, that's a good point. We were talking about it, Flynn. We're going to get into those MVP numbers. But one thing we wanted to touch on. Now, I wish that Mike was here because he was the one who told us in our group chat about this number. But apparently somewhere out there, I couldn't find it. We had a little trouble finding it. But he said at DK, you could get Shohei Ohtani against the field at minus, what did he say it was here?
20,000.
20,000? Yeah,
20,
Shohei versus the field, minus 20,000 for Shohei. Now, that is insanity. That is actually crazy. Vegas is saying that he's all but guaranteed to do this. But now that I did find the actual MVP odds here, we can kind of break into it and see what we have here. Let me share my screen, in fact, and we can do that. Okay, so perfect. So for starters, we have the MVP winners for the NL. Now, they've kind of gone off the board in some places. Some places have them differently. It looks like the only book that's really keeping great track of it is DK. So if anybody's shopping, that's where you're going to want to go, is DraftKings. But we got some impressive numbers here. So we were talking about this just a second ago with Ohtani's, but another player that is really high up there for the MVP also, who's getting a against the field type bet, is Ronald Acuna. So he's actually minus 650 against the field in DraftKings B, what are you making of what Acuna is doing? And we just talked about it. This Braves team is stacked from top to bottom, and they might have one of the best players in the league.
Absolutely. And, Ronald Acuna Jr. is proving, I think he's my pick for National League MVP. He's hitting 336. His OPS is at 997 right now, a 163 OPS plus. He's got, I know he's got very high numbers both in home runs and stolen bases, 26 home runs, 54 stolen bases. So as soon as he hits 30, he'll be in a conversation with Ohtani and Robert for Luis Robert Jr. for a 30-30 season, I believe, or maybe 30-20. But he will get to that point. He will be probably the only person in the National League to get to that point. Is well deserved. But Freddie Freeman as well, pulling the Dodgers back up to first place. He's been a big reason behind it. He's always had a good bat, but it's just improving. It's getting better and better. He's batting 342. He's got an OPS above 1 as well right now. So it'll be an interesting race. I think whoever is in pole position in the National League will have their MVP picked. I think that'll be Acuna for the Braves. But it's definitely a fun race in the National League right now as compared to the American League.
Yeah, absolutely. Just from a betting standpoint, when I look at something like this, we were just talking about Matt Olson just a second ago and how he's just on a power streak right now. He's just filling up the bucket with home runs. And at plus 2,000, now that's not saying that he's going to definitely be the winner, but with how much his name should be in at least some of the conversation with that kind of home run number right there, I would be putting a little bit of money down towards that just because the odds are amazing at plus 2,000 versus, like we talked about with Acuna being minus 650. Yeah, he's kind of a runaway, but this is a much closer division than the next, or the much closer conference than the next one that we're going to be talking about, the American League, which, oh, wow. Okay, it looks like they've taken literally everybody off of Betting Pros is no longer even tracking the American League. So for anybody looking, you might have to go and search a little bit harder. I don't think anybody wants to take your money. All these bookmakers don't want to take your Shohei money because they're going to end up having to pay you out pennies on the dollar for something that's just guaranteed to happen. So that might be something you have to look for and shop for. But if anybody is, curious, that's going to be one to keep an eye on. Now, can I filter it by open? I cannot filter it by open, but B, out of the American League, any player not named Shohei Ohtani, who do you think has the best opportunity to make any amount of noise, even if it doesn't mean for this season? Because sometimes these awards kind of carry over. If somebody maybe had an amazing performance the last season, they're up there in the MVP conversation. They follow it up with the next season with even just a relatively good season. They don't have to beat their performance as the season before. They're going to be right there in that conversation. So who is the player out of the AL that you might be watching for in this year and the year to come as being a big name?
Well, you see it right up top there with Kyle Tucker, at least for this season. He's going to be the key to the playoff push for the Houston Astros. He's been on a tear lately. He recently just clutched up a game with the go-ahead grand slam in Baltimore, which was huge for them. He's going to be big. He's slugging .519 right now. He's got 858 OPS. I think he's the best hitter on Houston's team by a little bit right now. Alex Bregman right behind him in terms of WAR, but he's been their biggest producer for them. So he's going to be very important for this playoff race. And if Shohei Ohtani didn't exist, would be one of the favorites for the MVP race. And if I may get biased for a second, even though he's injured with the sprained finger right now, Luis Robert has done amazing things this season. He's been the bright spot in a very dull White Sox season. He's just done it all. He's their best glove in the outfield, in the field, really. Their best bat. He's got power. He's got speed. He's going to be a big part of the White Sox offense. He's probably going to be what they build around going forward. But yeah, it's really those two names are big. You can choose anyone on the Texas Rangers as of right now. You have Adolis Garcia, Marcus Semien, Corey Seager. They've all been performing well. Big reasons why the Rangers are leading the AL West. But yeah, it's a fun group within the American League, and depending on where Shohei goes next season, those are names to look out for MVP going forward.
Kyle Tucker is praying he moves to the NL. He's praying that he moves to the NL. But you're right. These 5-tool players are not easy to find. And it's really tough for these guys that, traditionally would definitely be considered within the MVP race. There's just a prolific talent in the league right now that is absolutely, creating history. I mean, is the only way to put what Shohei's doing. So I'm right there with you. And, here's another award that we could find out right off the rip. Cy Young winner. I mean, obviously from the AL, it's got to be Shohei again. Excuse me. Or is it not? Maybe I'm a little. It looks like the odds have jumbled a little bit. Maybe not. Why don't you break it down for me then, Flem? Let's see who you're liking the most. It looks like Garrett Cole, actually, which makes
Garrett Cole right now is the favorite. Just because, for that Yankees team, they're all relying on pitching, and Cole has definitely been their most reliable. He's leading the wins above replacement for pitchers right now. He's got 4.7 WAR. I believe he's also he may be leading an ERA as well. I'm just verifying this right now. He's up near the top. Blake Snell is leading. Nathan Eovaldi is leading the AL for ERA, but Garrett Cole's right behind him. He's a strikeout machine as always. Right now, I think it is Garrett Cole's to lose, or Eovaldi. I think it's a coin flip between those two. Eovaldi's running a 2.69 ERA, and with the success of the Texas Rangers right now, I think they may be a little more favorited in terms of awards. But of course, you have Ohtani, who swings the bat as well as pitches, and he's also racking up strikeouts. He's got a sub 3.2 ERA, is also racking up strikeouts. He will likely, hopefully, if he stays healthy, he'll hit 200 strikeouts this season, which would be an insane scene for a designated hitter as well. But I think I have this as a 3-horse race in the American League right now between Cole, Nathan Eovaldi, and Shohei. It's really down to how those three performed throughout the last 2 months of the season.
And I was just about to say, and that can change all in the next couple of weeks because there is a lot of baseball still left to be played. I know that it seems like they've been playing baseball forever because they have, and they're about to be playing it for even a little bit longer. So there is a lot of room to be made up with, and especially in pitching where things can get really streaky. Now, like Garrett Cole, he's a pretty dominant guy, so it's hard to see him really falling off there. But you're right, with the talent that Ohtani has, with Eovaldi, there's so many big names on the mound that are just throwing witchcraft, like we talked about, that this thing could move a lot. But that's for the AL there. So when we go into the NL, let's take a look where it looks a lot closer, a lot closer. So what are you making of the NL Cy Young race, Flem?
It's another hot race right now. Zach Gallen would probably look like the favorite out of Arizona. He's tied for the lead in wins above replacement with 3.6. Leading earned run average with 2.63. And he's not racking up, or he is actually racking up. He's averaging 11 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. He's up there. Wait, no, I was looking at Blake Snell. I was talking Zach Gallen right now. We'll get to Blake Snell. Zach Gallen's averaging around 9 strikeouts per 9 innings right now. So and he's also not giving up too many hits or walks as well. His WHIP is 1.066 right now. So he's slim favorite right now, depending on how the Padres do and Blake Snell finishes the season. He's right on their trail. He's second in strikeouts per nine with 11.838, which is the number I was reading earlier. Spencer Strider up there for the Atlanta Braves. He's a strikeout machine. He's by far and away leading the strikeout race. He's got 217. And the next closest player in the Nash, he's got 217 strikeouts.
What's the next highest?
171. Blake Snell.
Get out of here. That is insanity. That is absolutely insane.
He's throwing straight heat right now. And yeah, it's Justin Steele up there for the Cubs as well, posting up a 2.79 ERA. There's a lot of pitchers you could go with. Michael Lorenzen probably won't win Cy Young, but he just went to Philadelphia and threw a no-hitter. He was solid for both the Tigers and the Phillies. But it's an interesting race right now. It's a lot of people that could come out on top. I didn't even mention Logan Webb, who's third in wins above replacement for pitchers at 3.9 or 3.3. I'm sorry. It's a hot race in the National League right now.
Whoo-wee. These are some flamethrowers. That's absolutely insanity to hear that somebody could have that many strikeouts this far into August. That's absolutely insane. A lot of dudes don't even get that many in a season. Like starting pitchers won't hit that type of number in an entire season. This man's like, yeah, mid-August, I'm cool. He's got the ball on a string. So that is awesome. That's a great thing to hear because, you know, we love these close races. And like we talked about with the AL, like it could get closer, but this one is super close.
It's super close.
I cannot wait to see how it played out. So in other big news, though, away from the awards voting, the biggest event of the MLB season so far, the trade deadline did just pass. So a lot of things happened. A lot of things didn't happen. What is the most notable trade for you that either fell through or ended up going in?
I think we keep saying Ohtani's name, but the fact that the Angels decided to keep him and push was kind of crazy. Especially seeing how they came off the All-Star break. They really went for it, and kind of going off the Angels, highlighted by trading they bought a lot. They bought Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez from the White Sox. There was a couple names they also bought that are escaping me, but they're going for it. They're trying their hardest to go for it. It's not working out too well so far for them. But you know, it's important. These next few games are vital for them. They're in Houston today. They finish the series in Houston, then they'll be playing the Rangers and then the Rays. These are important games that they cannot afford to lose against quality opponents.
Really quality opponents. Some of the toughest teams in the league. These are all going to be playoff teams.
Absolutely. And it's the people you got to beat if you're trying to get to the playoffs and win. And if you don't make it, you're letting Ohtani walk for nothing, which is it's going to set you back a lot. It's going to set you back a lot, especially since you just traded away a bunch of prospects for the likes of Giolito and Lopez and other places. Going to trades that did happen, the Mets selling off probably cemented themselves as some of the biggest disappointment in the league so far. Verlander and Scherzer going to rival teams in Houston and Texas. It's sad to see what happened to the Mets. If you're a New York Mets fan, you spend all this money, you think you're gonna compete for a spot, and then you just can't get over the hump at all. It's a rough scene. I don't know. They're definitely not going to be competing next year. It's going to be interesting to see what they try to do in the years that come. But
they're eating a ton of these contracts too, aren't they?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. I think they're still paying a portion of Scherzer's contract. They may be doing Verlander as well. I don't know, but they're still they traded these players and they're still like spending on them. They're going to be in a tough spot for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and we talked about it the last show that the two teams from New York have the two highest payrolls in the MLB. And one of them, the Mets, fell as hard as they could. Now, we talked about the Yankees, how they were how they've struggled with their injuries, yet they still would be leading like most of the divisions in the MLB right now. So when you see like what they've had to do with what they've got, yeah, they've got a lot of talent, but how they've kind of answered the call and picked it up is something that the little brother Mets have just never been able to do. And then also, shout out to Yo-Ye was taken. I get more strikeouts in one night in the club. Not going to lie. Those are Hall of Fame numbers, baby.
I believe it.
We put up them numbers. We love it. I'm right there with you. All right. So now we actually get into the breakdown of the divisions. We're going to start with the division nearest to my heart, the NL West, where the Rockies are a putrid 45-72, dead on arrival. The Dodgers leading the division 70-46. The Giants right there in the second wild card spot. The Diamondbacks not that far back either. And you know what? The Padres, we're going to sail the Padres down the river the last show, but they've kind of made up a little bit of ground. They're 5 games out of the last wild card spot. Flem, what do you make of what's happening in the West right now?
I think the biggest catalyst here in the West has been the downfall of the Arizona Diamondbacks post All-Star break and post trade deadline, really. If we're going to look at the Diamondbacks, they have a lot of, if you go to their baseball reference page, post All-Star break, it's a lot of red in terms of the losses. It's been a torrid downslide for them from first all the way down to third in the division right now, trying to make up ground. And they kind of sold at the trade deadline, giving up Andrew Chafin, one of their bullpen arms, to the Brewers. But, it's going to be interesting to see their attitude as the season finishes, whether they try to sneak into that last wild card spot or whether they try to just keep form and just buy in the offseason to go for a push. They did start to peak a little earlier than everyone expected. So I don't think, all things considered, this isn't like a down season for them. This is definitely an improvement from last season. But it's just tragic to see all this red on the baseball reference page. They've gone down a downslide. They recently just came off, it looks like, a 7 or 8 game losing streak, maybe more. It's been rough for the Diamondbacks, and the Dodgers are taking advantage. I don't think they've lost this week. They haven't lost a lot post All-Star break, and they're just going away with the division right now. And the Giants are keeping pace. They're taking advantage of the downfall of the Diamondbacks, even though they've lost 4 straight as of recently. They're still in that wild card spot, still fighting. And I wish we had Mike here so he could convince us on the Padres, because they look like they're fighting. They're trying to fight back in it. 56-61. I was going through and updating the record. 5 games out is not impossible. It just takes a little bit of luck. And, they're right there. They have a good arm in Blake Snell. It seems like the offense is starting to wake up a little bit. Who knows? It's going to be an interesting rest of August and September for the NL West.
And I love that. The Padres story that stuck out to me is that Machado bet somebody his contract, his like obscene contract. He bet a Dodgers fan, his obscene contract, and said if the Dodgers win a World Series before the Padres, that he'd give him his contract. And then that fan was at one of the games like this week and called in that bet. That's just the funniest thing to me. Absolutely can't get enough of that. But, and this is the thing also, when we talk about Arizona, specifically Arizona, I have a really hard time understanding why teams, like mid-market teams, can't get out of their own way and just sell no matter how their season's going. It seems like some of these mid-market, small market GMs, they're always set in sell mode. And I get it. Like maybe you're trying to get out in front of the Chafin contract and get some assets for it. But this is your time. How often are you going to be above the Dodgers? Do not let them have it. But then they just do. So it's like, it's kind of a shame to see the Diamondbacks fall this far. But at the end of the day, we knew the Dodgers were going to be dancing. They're just too good. They have too much talent, too much money on the payroll, and they just play the game really well. So I'm not all that surprised, especially with the Rockies being dead. 45-72. At least, wait, where is this in the grand scheme of things? Okay, it's at least the third worst record in the MLB and only the worst in the NL. So, I mean, I guess you win some, you lose some.
It happens. The Rockies are in a tough spot where there's like no light at the end of the tunnel right now.
There never is. There never
which is tough, but they just need that. They just need that one player. It was supposed to be Chris Bryant, but that was wrong place, wrong time for that signing. So it's gonna be it's. What I am curious to see when the Rockies will be back to Rocktober status.
Flem, I'm not that old, but I don't think it's going to be in my lifetime. I really don't. I'm not that old, but I definitely think I'm going to be dead before the Rockies are dancing again. But that's okay. You know, we live through it. We win some, we lose some, and that's all right. At the end of the day, Coors Field is still the most beautiful park in the league, in my opinion. But
it looks beautiful.
Neither here nor there. But we move on. That's the end of the West. Now we move into the NL Central, where the Brewers sit atop the division, 64 wins. The Cubs hold the third wild card spot, and we've got a couple of teams down in the dumps. The Pirates, unfortunately, have fallen out of favor. That's kind of, I think, a bummer for most MLB fans because the Pirates are just such a swaggy team, and they carry themselves so well, and I always fall in love with their players, and it's a little tough to see how far they fell and they couldn't kind of keep that up. But at the end of the day, that's kind of expected for them too. And then the Cardinals being at the bottom of the division is so sweet. So what are you making of what's going on in the Central right now, B?
It was a fun April and May for Pittsburgh, but they've fallen back down to earth, are on track to take last place from the Cardinals, which would be a tough scene for them. Just because we love seeing the Cardinals in last, but it's unfortunate that we have to call the Pirates dead because they're always a fun team, but they did sell at the deadline. They're 52-64. It's gonna be it's their season's done, but who knows? Maybe there's a little bit of hope for next season. You had such a great start to the season, hopefully that can be replicated and, maintained next season. In terms of the top three in the NL Central, the Brewers are starting to look like an NL Central winning team. As of right now, they're on track to sweep the White Sox. They're winning 2-0 right now, it looks like. And they've come out pretty well outside of one series in Atlanta. They've looked pretty good after the All-Star break. But as much as it pains me to say it, the team that looks the best in the NL Central right now is the Chicago Cubs. They've been on a tear. They had an 8-game winning streak where I wasn't convinced because they played the Cardinals and the White Sox, but then they went and took 2 or 3 against Atlanta, and everybody's turning their heads and are like, oh, wait, this team may be legit. They've won 2 or 3 in Toronto as well. Cody Bellinger has reawakened. It's been an insane season for him. He's back to his MVP status that he was when the Dodgers were, or not the Dodgers were really good because they still are, but when he was back with starting out with the Dodgers. But this team is as much as it pains me to say it, this is looking like they may make a run for this NL Central crown. They're in second place. They're a couple games behind the Brewers right now, but I don't know if they have any more series against them. I think they probably do, but that'll be must-watch TV and within the NL Central.
And it's so funny because you're our White Sox fan. The owners of this site, our fearless leaders, Neil Smith and Steve Bonham, they both love the Cubs. And so I really wish the White Sox had done a little bit more. So this rivalry could have really burst through the seams in our Discord. But unfortunately, the Cubs ended up kind of picking it up. The White Sox did not. But it's okay because Steve and Neil are so hurt by the Cubs. They've been so hurt by the Cubs in their adult life that they are not getting their hopes up at all. And it's funny to watch. It's funny to watch them in shambles while the Cubs are doing good. I just find it hilarious being a fan of a team that absolutely sucks every single season. I feel for them. I'm right there with them. So
yeah, it'll be important to note as well. I'm looking right now. The next time the Cubs and the Brewers play is the last series of the season. So if it's still this close, that's gonna be must see TV. That's gonna be probably the matchup of that
the divisional
weekend for
matchup
sure.
Of the year, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the Central for us, nice and tidy. We've got some things to watch for, so everybody get that on your calendar. And we move into the East, the NL East. Like we talked about before, the Braves are doing crazy things. 75 wins. They're on pace for some big things. The Phillies right behind them, first wild card spot. Well, I guess I shouldn't say right behind them. They're 10 full games back. The Braves are probably going to run away with this thing. But the Phillies, a great record. They're still right there. They own the first wild card spot. Marlins, they've fallen a little bit. They're a half game out of the last wild card spot, so there is still a chance. Like we talked about, the Mets, probably the biggest disappointment in the MLB. The Nationals, they're dead. What's going on in the East is, I think, maybe even a better question than what's going on in the East. We know what's going on in the East. I think in a better sense, maybe the question should be, can anybody in the NL take down the Braves?
Not in the regular season. I think the Braves have the East Division locked up right now in terms of just winning the title. But if we're looking at the Phillies right now, they're having an eerily similar season to last season, where they started off struggling, surged to a wild card berth, and then went on to beat the Braves in the NLDS and make the World Series, where they lost to the Astros. But they're starting to wake up a little bit. Trey Turner's turning it around. That was going to be a huge key into whether or not this team could turn it around, and he's starting to wake up with the bat. They, like we mentioned earlier, they made the acquisition of Michael Lorenzen. Won his first 2 games through a no-hitter. In his second game, his first home start. This team is looking strong. This team, it's going to be an interesting jockey between the Phillies and the Marlins, who also bought at the deadline. They traded for Jake Berger, who has been doing pretty okay up there to start. It's going to be an interesting jockey for those wild card spots, but I don't think there's a lot to lose for the Braves. They with the double-digit game lead in the division this late in the season, it's hard for a team of that quality to give it up. And so it's going to be, I think it's the Braves division to lose right now.
They're just a murderer's row. They're just so talented at every spot that it's hard to find their weak link in the lineup. It's hard to find their weak link in the rotation. It's hard to find their weak link in the bullpen. So I'm right there with you. I think it's the rest of these teams are really kind of grasping at straws and hoping. But like you said, this is really reminiscent of what the Phillies did last year. So it's going to be an interesting draw. See what ends up happening there. But we actually head into the American League now. We're again starting out with the West, where the Rangers sit atop the division, 70 wins. The Astros right behind them, second wild card spot. We hate to see that. But there's really only one team that's dead in this division, and that's the Athletics. Because, I mean, did anybody not see that coming? They have 33 total wins. They're on pace for probably one of the worst seasons ever recorded in the MLB. I think, like, what was it? I think we looked that up one of the last shows. Wasn't it like 19 wins or something like that? Or something
so,
stupid.
like that.
But so, like, they're actually not going to break the record, but they're on pace for a very, very horrible record that is going to be historically bad. I hate to say it for any of the Oakland fans out there that deserve way more than what they've gotten. That's for sure. So what do you make of what's happening in the AL and the West specifically, B?
I think the most important team to watch here, obviously, would be the Los Angeles Angels. Not because they have like a great chance of making the wild card, is because they put all their chips into making the wild card, and they are a few games away from being declared dead. They've lost 7 of their last 9 games, and they have a pretty big murderer's row of matchups to end this month and going into this next month of September. They do kind of get a break after Tampa Bay with Cincinnati and New York, but then they have the Phillies away, and they don't have the easiest schedule left. So they have to get as many games as possible. They have to go basically have the attitude of going 1-0 every day, like the Nationals did back in 2019 when they won the World Series. But they're a couple series away from being dead as well. 6.5 is not where you want to be in the wild card this late in the season. It's possible. It's been comebacks have been done before from that much, but it's just not a good spot. It's not where you want to be. They have to wake up if they really want it. But we also want to note the Mariners. They've had a good wake up call as well. They've been on a pretty good winning streak as of recent. They're only half a game out of that wild card spot as now, which is making the AL a little more interesting. It's more than just the AL East now, which is great for the American League. So it's gonna be fun to see how that wild card matchup shapes out, and then of course you'll have the Rangers and Astros making the playoffs. It's just going to be a matter of who wins that division. The Astros right now, it looks like they're 3 games back in the loss column, which can be made up. Their matchups have been heated so far this season, and if they do play again, that will be another must-watch segment for this season.
There's still so many strong teams out there in that division that it makes up for the really putrid division we'll get into here in a second. But yeah, so I mean, and we talked about, I think the Angels are really the team that we have to highlight the most out of this division, obviously, because they needed the trajectory that the Mariners went on. Now they're on a losing streak, 6.5 games back. It's really, really hard to say that they're going to be doing, they're going to be dancing at the end of this thing, but they do have Shohei Ohtani. So like,
they do have Shohei Ohtani.
There is the ultimate trump card there for them to just kind of take over that. If he really just he has been playing prolific, and that still hasn't been enough. Maybe he can find another level to make this happen, but honestly, the supporting cast there just needs to figure it out, because they're really struggling there.
If there was ever evidence that baseball is the team sport of all team sports, that nobody can carry you, you have 2 of the greatest players of all time on one team, and they're still 4th in the division.
It's a sample size sport too. If you fall too far behind, there's so much like room you have to make up. 6.5 games is incredibly a lot of games to make up. You have to go on a streak, and you also have to have some luck play out your way where these teams that you're chasing just fall flat on their face. And at this point, I don't know that I see it happening, but it's going to be an interesting watch. That's for sure.
Yeah. And there's a saying around baseball that there's the 60 you win and the 60 you lose. And the rest of the games are the vital ones. The Angels have already lost their 60 games.
Right.
So these last few games, they are 2 games under right now. So if they win the next 2 games, that last crop of games, that's going to be the make or break right there.
They have, and it has to be. And like, I don't want to sound hyperbolic or anything like that, but this may be the most important 8 to 10 weeks in the history of the Angels franchise. They could either set themselves up to retain Ohtani, have a great season, make the playoff, make the wild card, do all the things that they set out to do, or the worst case scenario, which is, in my opinion, much more likely, like we've talked about before, they bought at the deadline, traded some of their prospects, could potentially lose Shohei for nothing, which in general would have been the biggest trade. It would have ended up getting the most back from probably any modern trade in MLB history. Even for a rental, I think that you would definitely still see that type of number for Ohtani, and they might be heading down that way. So it's going to be an interesting watch for sure. But into the Central, where unfortunately, Flem, your White Sox have been declared dead. 47-71, a tough break, but they are not in last. The Royals, 38-81, they are dead as well. The Tigers, not much better. They're dead too. This is really a 2-team division. Twins, Guardians, they're going to be fighting it out for the pennant of the divisional title here, and probably not going to get both of them in the playoffs. What is happening in the Central, B?
I know one of these teams has to make the playoffs. I think unofficially all of these teams are dead because they're not, unless they come up against like the Yankees, they're not making much noise in the wild card round, I think, or the ALDS if they make it that far. The Twins, all they have to do is wait in water because the Guardians are so far behind. They're one bad stretch away from being declared dead as well, at 56-62. But the Twins at 61-58. Somehow that's a comfortable lead in the Central. The Tigers are dead. There's not a lot to say about these teams. I could go on and on about the White Sox though, just because of the absolutely insane week that has happened. Between Tim Anderson getting knocked out by Jose Ramirez and, all the disorganization within the clubhouse and up top in the front office. It's just a culture change that needs to happen from top to bottom within the White Sox, but that's another tangent for another time.
Jose
and the Royals,
man. Jose caught him.
Jose caught him clean.
You got to keep your hands up because he really caught him. And you could tell that Tim was like not expecting that because it definitely shocked him a little bit. But Tim wore it. Pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, he did go on a Twitter tangent, a couple of days later. But yeah,
did he? I didn't see that. That's funny.
Yeah. But, it is what it is. He'll be fine. But everyone in this division is dead. I'm saying it right now. Unofficially, one of these teams has to win the division. Everyone is dead. Maybe the Twins get lucky and make the ALDS off the wild card round, depending on who they face. But they will have the home field advantage and the pleasure of playing whoever's third in the wild card. But it's the AL Central has had a season to forget across the board this year.
This is the participation trophy division for sure. Somebody has to win it, but that's just because that's the way the rules go. And it's funny because, next offseason, one of the big storylines is going to be like, why does every division need a winner? Why does every division get a playoff team? And then you're going to have the the completely revamp the playoff system people, and they're going to be arguing with the old head, like, what about the rivalry system? And it's just going to be an incredible, display of ineptitude from the Twitter heads that are going to be arguing about it. I can't wait to see it happen. But so that's it. The Central, DOA, they're dead on arrival. The last division we're breaking down for the day, and in a nice little timely manner, is the AL East. Wow. The Orioles did the damn thing. They are above the Rays. 72 wins, 1 win above the Rays. 71-48 for the Rays. 72-45 for the Orioles. The Rays do have the first wild card spot. The Blue Jays right behind them. Reds, Yankees, everybody's in it. Surprisingly enough, the Twins in the Central are actually now ahead of the Yankees for, who even knows how often that's happened this year, because that's been one of our biggest talking points, how the worst team in the East is better than the best team in the Central. And that still is probably true, but this is going to be an interesting draw. What's happening in the East, B? How is this going to shake out?
It's a 2-horse race, it's looking like right now. Unless the Blue Jays pull off an insane winning streak at some point. It's the Orioles and the Rays that will be fighting for that. And I think, shout out to Baltimore. Me personally, I expected them to at least make wild card this season. I did not expect them to win the AL's East. They're in pole position right now. They're in a good spot. They look like they own the Rays right now. And it's a beautiful sight to see. As a lifelong Baltimore Orioles fan, I am pulling for them to keep atop the AL East and hopefully make a solid push within the playoffs. Kind of touching towards the bottom here, we're looking at the Yankees. They have some suspect series losses. They've lost the season series to the White Sox. I believe they may have lost the season series to the Mets. No, I think they may have lost the season series to the Mets. They either quit or lost it. They have not looked good against the top teams in the division. They have not looked good against the Red Sox, their biggest rivals. This is as much hope as, Aaron Boone has for this team. I think he's very nearsighted in what is possible for this Yankees team. The pitching has not been there outside of Garrett Cole. The batting has definitely not been there outside of Aaron Judge. They're lucky to be 3 games over 500 right now, I think. But this could be something. They're going to Atlanta this week, and then they host Boston. We could see them drop under 500 soon. It's tough. They're still in it, but I think personally, the Yankees and maybe the Red Sox are close to being dead, just because of the nature of the AL East and the nature of these wild card teams that are still in it. But we'll see. It'll be interesting within the AL East as well, from top to bottom.
It's so funny though too, because if you just any season for the last maybe 10 years, the divisional standings for the East have been completely flipped on their head. It would be like the Yankees and the Sox, maybe the Blue Jays are competing a little bit, and then the Rays and the Orioles are just, bottom of the barrel. And now it's just the complete opposite. And it's funny because you bring up Boone. And honestly, I think of Boone like the guy who has one trick. It's like every other week we're hearing about him getting kicked out of another game or getting tossed for, giving it to an ump. And that's part of the game, but it almost seems like that's his only move to try to motivate his team, is to go in there and just get kicked for some things are probably warranted, but sometimes I feel like I sit there and I see a headline that Boone got kicked out for a no call or something like that. And then you go and look at it and you're like, dude, that's a tweener. Come on, man. You're really getting kicked out over that one? That's the one you're getting kicked out over? If I'm the umpire, I'm giving you a smaller strike zone now. or I'm giving you a bigger strike zone now because you pissed me off type shit. Like,
Right.
that's a really close call. Like, don't come get at me because I'm on a tweener right here. Like, it just almost seems like the littlest things. And, maybe he needs to stay a little more composed to get this team composed. And I just find it so funny because, Aaron Boone was the, baseball tonight guy, and he was actually kind of nice and pretty smart. And now I feel like all I ever see about him is him yelling at umpires. It's kind of funny.
He's honed the craft. He's definitely the best yeller at umpires right
Yeah.
now in the league. If you could give awards for that, maybe end of season important non-test baseball awards, the best screamer of umpires goes to Aaron Boone.
You're right. We'll have to write it down. Honestly, it sucks that John Boy Media got too big now and they don't really do too many of the, day by day lip reading things, but somebody needs to bring that back. I need a full compilation because Boone actually did used to have the best, the absolute fieriest comebacks. So I can appreciate that for sure. But what a division. The East is going to be crazy. Shout out to the Orioles. Shout out to the Rays. I love seeing things get turned on their head. I love seeing parity in sports. So this is a big thing for that. And I just love to see it. I'm excited to see how that one shakes out for sure.
Yep, absolutely. And just looking at, the standings after the All-Star break, just before we wrap up real quick. Some of the teams to watch in the top of the AL. Seattle's been 18-8, has led the AL since the All-Star break, followed by Texas and Houston and Baltimore. And in the NL, the Cubs 19-8, followed by Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and somehow Washington Nationals at 15-12 are the fourth best team post All-Star break. So that's a fun little note. But yeah, we're getting close to September baseball, the most fun baseball that we'll get in the regular season. So wrapping up August soon. Fall ball will be fun to watch.
Good. Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself, Flem. It was a great show. That actually does it for us. We have no more divisions to break down, no more news. We will be back before too long. We were on a hiatus a little bit longer this last time, and that was my fault. I had a little scheduling conflict, but I promise we will be back, and we will be figuring out how this thing ends. For anybody who wants to stay posted, check us out, importantnonsense.com/supporters. That's how you get into our Discord, where you can ask me questions, you can ask Flem questions about baseball or even about fantasy football coming up. We have a whole staff of guys that does that stuff. So definitely you want to stay on tap. Also, sub to the YouTube, follow the Twitch, do whatever it is on Facebook that thing does, and check us out. We're going to have all sorts of stuff coming down the pipeline for football season. We're still doing baseball season. And definitely you also can get your merch, your IN merch at importantnonsense.com. Promo code BASE to get a nice little bonus, a nice little discount there on us. So until next time, everybody, we appreciate you. Flem, do you have any parting words for the folks at home?
Just enjoy baseball and enjoy football coming up. It's being fun. I'm fully focused on the Bears now that the White Sox are dead. But all jokes aside, definitely keep watching baseball. There's some great storylines being made up as we approach September baseball, the playoff push, the wild card push. It'll be fun. It's going to be a fun time for sports.
It's going to be a good one. And, Flem's being a little bit coy, but we got a fantasy football rivalry going on here that's going to end up hitting a fever pitch here in a few weeks. So good luck to you, Flem, on our fantasy draft coming up. And for everybody else out there, keep up the nonsense. Oh, whoops.